Hey there, welcome back. It's episode 5 now, I believe. Or no, is it episode? It's episode 4. Um, yeah, it's episode 4. Clearly, I need to keep better track of how many episodes I'm putting out. It's me, the AI Dinosaur. I do want to talk a little, just mention that episode 3 with Raj, unfortunately, I think I definitely had technical mishaps. And I ended up being, my voice was very soft in all the videos. So hopefully, I think I selected the wrong mic. Hopefully I got the right one this time. And hopefully it's working and set to the right volume. So hopefully we don't have those same audio issues. I should mention that the screen recorder that I'm using, I'm realizing that sometimes it crashes. I haven't had that happen on me yet, but it does crash sometimes. So I'm going to do this in segments. So with those two things out of the way, I wanted to share something, right? Like I had a slightly different agenda for this episode, or list of things that I wanted to tackle. But I mean, it's nothing big, but I wanted to share that I almost did not record this episode because I've been feeling a little deflated over the last couple of days because I feel like I've not made progress over maybe the last 7 to 10 days towards my goals. And specifically, I had a goal of getting started with building something. And that something was going to be an agentic... It was going to be an automated workflow with an agentic flavor to it. And, 10 days later, I feel like I've not made progress towards that. Well, I've not... I thought I would be much further along than I am. So I was feeling a little deflated. I kind of didn't want to make the video because of that. I was like, why do it? Why do it now, right? Like, I'll do it when I make some progress. But I kind of pushed myself to do it because, it's if I'm sharing my learning journey, then part of it is sharing when I have challenges. And I think everybody who goes through any sort of learning process is going to have days when, or periods of time where they don't make much progress. So I wanted to share that challenge as well. And I think, to me, it's important. It is important to be resilient, which means being able to get through these periods and refocus on the task at hand. But it's also important for me to keep things in perspective. And I'm talking through this because I had this conversation inside my head with myself. But I feel like maybe talking through this will help me as well. And it might help people who will go through similar challenges. So what I mean by keep things in perspective, I didn't do nothing over the last 10 days. So I wanted to sort of walk through, at least at a very brief level, the things that I did and how they actually do perhaps contribute towards the goal. So the first thing that I did was I formed an understanding of the steps that would go into building the agentic workflow. I looked into the tool, and I'm going to refer to it as an agentic workflow and not an agent or workflow because I think it is an agentic workflow. So the main tool that I was going to use was this platform called N8N.com. N, the letter 8, and N.com again. I did research into this tool. I actually, I found that they had the subscription service and the starter level was not too expensive, but I did some reading and people talked about, hey, if you host it locally, I'm still on the call. If you host it locally, you will, you won't have to pay any monthly subscription costs. So I decided I would try to host it locally. And boy, that was a struggle because I'm not a coder. And every single error that I ran into, and I ran into a lot, from something as basic as I did not have Linux installed on my machine. And I did not know that I did not have Linux installed. And I had to figure that out. So something as basic as that, right? So I struggled through a lot. But long story short, after 3 or 4 days of struggle, and that was probably the main period that I feel like I didn't make progress, right? But I actually figured out something. The end result was that I had a local... I figured this out. I installed a local version of N8N. I installed a local version of a platform called Olama, which can be used to download open source models like DeepSeek locally to my machine. So I could have done that if I wanted to, and I actually did that. I actually did download DeepSeek locally. I downloaded a couple of database applications which work well with setting up an agentic workflow. And I was sort of ready to go. I even got started with trying to build that. But that's where I ran into my second challenge, which was I quickly realized that with a local installation, I had to struggle through the installation itself, through the setup, but I would have had to struggle with every single error that I encounter as well. So at that point, I quickly pivoted and I said, okay, I can't do the local setup. And I think that bummed me out a bit because I feel like I struggled a lot to figure out something basic, and then at the first step, I ran into an issue, which is I'm not technically trained enough to operate a local AI instance, at least at this point. So since then, yeah, I've mostly just been doing some learning. I should actually mention that I'm not going to go into it too much, but I have a concept of a product. To quote someone, the concept of a product. The concept of a product. And I actually found, I watched a couple of, through my learning, I found some what I believe to be solid business, cases, solid monetization options for that idea. So I spent some time thinking about that. And so again, just to go back to me feeling deflated, right? I know this has already been, 9 minutes? So I'm going to wrap it up, and I apologize for sort of maybe pontificating, but yeah, I just wanted to share this. But to come back to me feeling deflated, right, I think I need to remind myself that I did do things which contribute. They're part of the journey. And running into these roadblocks or setbacks is also part of the journey. Anybody who's trying to learn something worth learning, I'd say, is going through, and doesn't need to be anything technical, right? I love gardening. I'd consider something like learning how to be a good gardener as something really worth learning. More, I think, maybe than this even. But anytime you try to learn something that's really worth learning, you're going to run into challenges and you're going to have setbacks. So you've got to figure out how to power through it. And how to get back and refocus. And doing this episode has actually helped me do that. I will, I'll pivot to the next segment, which is some pretty fascinating stuff, I think, that's going on in the field of AI. I'm not going to actually go and share, some learnings about some tools that I've been using or anything of that sort. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rest of this episode, right, to form an understanding of what are the latest developments in this space. By the way, I just realized that I had some background noise. I'll have to go back and listen to the audio. Yeah, we might have that technical challenge for this episode as well. But, so I need to understand the latest developments because I think they are some very, very critical developments that have happened in the last 7 to 10 days that I need to learn about. So I'm going to use NotebookLM. I'm going to give like a brief overview of those developments and at least my familiarity with them. And then I'm going to learn about what's gone on through NotebookLM. So this is sort of going to be a live learning session for me. Yeah, hopefully that works out well. This is the end of segment 1. I'm going to stop it just to avoid potential loss. Ha! All right, I'm back. This wouldn't be an episode of the AI Dinosaur if I didn't have some technical issues, right? So right after I finished filming or recording that first segment, I went back to export my file, and I exported it, and I opened it up, and it was just audio. and I freaked out a bit. But then I realized that for some reason I'd set the export to be just audio, so I changed that and it worked. But of course, as everybody who's seen the first segment will know by now, I had the giant mouse pointer pretty much pointed at my head. Oh, and I realized that the light is really bright, so I'm gonna, nope, not that. All right. I guess we're having some lighting issues now.
A few moments later.
This is hilarious. I think I'm gonna have to keep track of account now. How many dumb technical issues do I encounter? How much of a dinosaur am I every episode? There should be a dinosaur counter. Yeah, my little ring light died, and oddly enough, I had a backup. I'm not sure if it's died or if it just has a loose connection somewhere. I got to troubleshoot it tomorrow, so that's why the lighting has changed. And this is going to be a tiny segment again. I'm going to come back. I'll be back. But I wanted to come back to just mention the other part. I forgot. I neglected to mention, and I often neglect to mention, is the progress over the last 10 days. It should include I had a couple of social interactions and actually got some physical exercise as a result of one of them. So one of the social interactions was with this lovely family who we know, and they have some lovely dogs, and we hung out and we had a good time. And the second social interaction was 3 of my friends got me to get my lazy butt out of bed and out of this chair and go play some pickleball. And one of them is Raj from episode 3. So I want to give a shout out to them. Hopefully I'll have the other 2 as well. So Karan and Luke and Raj. Yeah, we met up, played some pickleball. We actually had a great chat about AI. I know that they're going to be listening, so this is a little fan service to them, since they'll comprise like 80% of the people who ever listen to this episode. But I wanted to give, acknowledge that those things are important as well, right? Getting physical exercise, and I'm terrible at that. I'm terrible at getting physical exercise outside of walking my pups, and interacting socially. And again, I have been terrible at that in various ways. So I need to get better at that as well. But the fact that I did those things is progress. It's part of the journey. So I just wanted to quickly acknowledge those things, because I don't know how baked I'll be when I come back. So I don't know if I'll remember to acknowledge those things. But no pointer on my face, thank God. I don't know how to get rid of this thing in Teams. I don't even know. Sorry, in Meet. I don't even know why I'm using Meet, but I gotta figure this thing out at some point. Okay, so we're back for the main sort of AI segment. I'm just still cracking up a bit about the level of technical ineptitude I have. I had in just those first 3 segments, and this is probably to blame. But a lot of it is like how old I am as well. But I'm gonna leave it in. I thought about maybe I'll edit it out, but I'm gonna leave it in because, I'm guessing that I don't want to be too polished. Some people are here to like watch the train wreck that being a dinosaur involves. So give the people what they want. That's what I say.
Are you not entertained?
So let's see if I can remember what this segment was about. I remember. I'm kidding. There's been a lot of activity, I think is probably the best way to put it, over the last 7 to 10 days. The big thing that grabbed the headlines was an open source model out of a lab in China called DeepSeek R1 matched or beat the benchmarks of the best US closed source models. And there was some information about how much these guys spent and how innovative they were. And long story short, this news like took the tech sector as well as like the stock market and the news cycle. It kind of took over the news cycle. It was big headlines everywhere. Everyone was talking about DeepSeek. We had a big dive in the stock market, which has recovered a bit since, but still not completely. And everyone was, the thing that I kept seeing again and again is OpenAI is in trouble. They have no moat. They have no, oh, I guess I got to do this once every call, right? And now I got to move the pointer. That's what caused it last time. So the thing I kept hearing about was OpenAI has no moat. Their advantage had evaporated. Well, over the last 7 days, it's been The Empire Strikes Back. DeepSeek, I am your father. Sorry, I'm a big Star Wars fan. That just, I felt like I had to add to The Empire Strikes Back, right? If I say that.
Oh, yeah! Oh, no!
So OpenAI released a few things, and I think that's still, their releases are still in progress. The way I'd summarize it, they released their first OpenAI agent product. So a lot of people claim to be building agents, but ultimately they're still putting together systems that might have an agentic nature. But this was OpenAI's truly first, here's our product that's built on an underlying model that's going to that acts as an agent without trying to hook it up to anything else. And it was called Operator. Then after that, they released their latest model, which is called O3 Mini, which just, you know, there were some, I saw a video, and we'll discuss some of this with NotebookLM, but I saw a video where this guy, the night the model came out, using simple text commands, he asked O3 Mini to give him the code for to build a game of Snake. Simple enough to do, but the models have had challenges doing it consistently until maybe 3 to 6 months ago. Right? I think Claude was the first one that sort of did it consistently. He asked O3 Mini to then iterate on the game to make it more difficult, to add a simple scoring system, then make the scoring system more complex, add traps, you know, mess with game speed. And it successfully did all of that. And it was playing the game, so it wasn't a human that was playing the game. And then he asked O3 Mini to write the code for a machine learning algorithm that would use the game for a reinforced learning session, essentially, to essentially learn to play the game that O3 Mini had just written. And it did that successfully. That's big, right? It's a model creating a machine learning algorithm, essentially. And then after that, OpenAI wasn't done. They released their next, probably most powerful agent, which is called Deep Research. And Deep Research, I'm not going to say too much about Deep Research because I kind of want to leave that for the conversation with NotebookLM. But Deep Research might be the most fascinating and in some ways the most groundbreaking product in the AI space. You know, I've not heard people describe it this way, but it has that feel that it might be the most groundbreaking product in the AI space since the release of, ChatGPT to the public. It feels that significant. Its ability to do. Yeah, I'll leave it for, we'll leave it for the conversation with NotebookLM. So yeah, this is a perfect segue to. I've created a notebook. I just realized that I need to adjust. Watch out. Dinosaur at work. Coming through. All right. I think this covers the window. Oh, and you can actually see me too. That usually never happens. Okay, so I created a notebook, and Notebook's got a bunch of YouTube links that cover these topics. And it's got a couple of additional things which are pretty cool. I generated the audio overview. Now, one thing I just wanted to show you folks, sometimes when adding YouTube videos as sources, I run into an issue where it just doesn't recognize, or it can't consume that YouTube link as a source. For some reason, when putting this together, I got a whole bunch of videos, like eight out of maybe 30. So high percentage, which I could not use as sources. So we're missing some interesting sources for sure. But let's jump right into the interactive mode. Like I said, I've got the audio overview going, so let's jump into the interactive mode. And yeah, I'm gonna try. What I should mention is, like I mentioned at the end of the last segment, I have some knowledge about some of the stuff that was revealed, and I've seen some of these videos, but I've really not been able to sort of consolidate it in my mind. So this is very much a learning session for me. And hopefully I'll be able to guide the conversation effectively. This is kind of the first proper interactive learning session I've done with NotebookLM, and I'm doing it live. So let's see how it goes.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about AI.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, some of the stuff that's been happening recently in China and the US.
Right.
I think it's really interesting stuff. So,
Oh, wait. Someone wants to join. Hey, go for it.
Can you give me a list of the top 5 to 6 topics covered in the source material?
Okay, that's a great question, and I'm happy to do that for you.
yeah, absolutely. Let's unpack this for you.
So if we think about the source material, there are a few main themes.
Right, like we could definitely start with the DeepSeek models.
Yes, and how they compare to other models. That's definitely one big area.
Yeah, they're V3 and R1 models specifically.
Exactly, and the whole idea of chain of thought reasoning.
Okay, so that's 2 then. Then there's also the topic of AI agents.
Oh, yeah, the things that can interact with the real world.
And browse the internet and do stuff for us, that kind of thing.
Right, so we're at 3 topics. Then there's the AI arms race.
Yeah, and the whole competition for reputing power.
So that's 4. And we also need to mention the rise of AI research in China.
Yeah, that's a big one, with companies like DeepSeek.
And then finally, the financial and ethical implications of AI.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
What about the recent announcements from OpenAI? What can you tell me about that from the source material?
Okay, that's a great question. We can definitely delve into the recent OpenAI announcements using our sources.
Yeah, let's unpack this because there was a lot going on, especially with O3 Mini, right?
Exactly, and our sources covered both the announcements and the releases. There's a difference between the two.
Okay, so announcements are like blog posts where they're talking themselves up.
Exactly, and releases are when the actual oh yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, I want to clarify. Give me a 3-minute. Sorry, not a 3-minute. Give me a 60-second overview of the O3 release of the OpenAI releases covered in the source material.
Okay, absolutely, we can do that for you.
Yeah, let's get you a quick rundown of O3 Mini.
So the big thing is they launched this O3 Mini model.
Right, and it's designed to be more accessible.
It is a reasoning model, which is pretty powerful and reasonably priced.
Exactly, a cheaper option, but it still performs really well.
It seems like it's meant to keep pace with DeepSeek's models,
Yes, and it did really well in the ARC task.
which is like an AGI test of its reasoning abilities.
Yeah, but our sources also said it takes a lot of compute.
So it could be expensive to run, but the model is available now.
And that's the gist of the O3 Mini release from our sources.
But you fast summary, I hope.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
How does the O3 Mini compare to other models for?
That's a great question, and we can definitely... Hey,
Sometimes
yeah,
it
what's
does
up?
How does the O3 Mini compare to other models for coding tasks?
Okay, that's a fantastic question.
Yeah, let's unpack the O3 Mini's coding capabilities.
So for coding tasks, it actually does really well.
Yes, our sources show that it excels in some areas.
It's a real coding beast, like we said.
Exactly, especially when compared to some other models.
So it's a clear winner there, but it is very specialized.
What's fascinating is that it's optimized for STEM,
Right, like math, science, and tech-related questions.
and that's why it performs so well in coding benchmarks.
But how does it stack up against the older O1 model?
Well, O1 is still the go-to for general knowledge tasks.
So it's still better for visual tasks and broad reasoning.
Exactly, but O3 Mini is faster and more efficient for coding.
It's like a specialized tool, better for technical stuff.
Yes, and our sources show that it gives really good results.
So for pure coding, it seems like O3 is the better choice.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, go on.
Can you give me some of the examples or demonstrations from the videos of O3 Mini's capabilities?
Okay, that's a great idea. Let's get into some of that.
Yeah, our sources showed some really cool examples.
So one video showed someone building a whole app with it,
Right, they were using it to generate code really fast.
and they were saying you don't even have to know Python.
Yeah, it's supposed to make coding more accessible for everyone.
Another example had it scraping YouTube video titles.
And then it categorized them using JSON format.
It was even able to identify the best performing videos.
Exactly, that shows its capacity for data analysis.
And there was also the example of improving a UI,
Yeah, they showed it making a new modern interface quickly.
and it was able to add new features on the fly,
It even implemented a dark mode, which is very in demand these days.
so it could adapt to new requests really quickly.
And that demonstrates its ability to follow complex instructions.
Hopefully that gives you a better idea of its capability.
So, a couple of things. Firstly, if you were following along with those examples that it was providing of things people were using O3 Mini for, that's some interesting, complicated stuff. Like creating an entire app or modifying the UI effectively. Yeah, that's interesting. It takes the ability for people to build probably to the next level, right? But another observation is these videos actually, the summary actually, not surprisingly, it doesn't quite convey the level of information that the videos convey. It's a very, almost a highly compressed version of that. But let's see if we can get further. I'm going to ask it about deep research now.
Please.
Yes, and how versatile it is for various tasks. Yep, go on.
What can you tell me about OpenAI deep research?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. Let's unpack deep research for you.
Yeah, this is one of the coolest announcements, I think.
So deep research is designed to do multi-step research on the internet.
Right, it's like having an expert researcher at your fingertips.
And what's fascinating is that it discovers, synthesizes, and reasons about content.
Yeah, it's not just searching, it's understanding.
And it adapts its plan as it uncovers more and more info.
So it's constantly learning as it goes,
One big difference is that they remove latency constraints.
which means it can take a long time to get an answer.
Yes, sometimes even 30 minutes. But it's a good thing.
Yeah, they think that's how AGI will develop eventually.
And this is all part of their AGI roadmap.
So it's not just about getting quick results, it's about depth.
Exactly. It's about uncovering new knowledge for itself.
And our sources said that you get a fully
So you see what they said? They said this is the behavior, so the removal of latency constraints, which essentially were the constraints that were in place to require the model to give an answer within, not take too much time to provide an answer. They removed that to essentially allow to allow the model, the underlying model, to think, and to think for longer. So that's interesting, but they also said that this is, they believe, and they being OpenAI, they believe that this is how AGI will develop, and that this is part of their AGI roadmap, which the implication being they clearly have an AGI roadmap, which is scary and exciting at the same time. So yeah, let's keep going with this. This is interesting.
I did research paper.
Yes, it's like what an expert in the field would produce.
Okay, so let's dig into more of how it compares to other models.
Sure, we can start with how it compares to the O3 Mini.
Yeah, it's very different. They have different use cases.
Exactly, it can outperform it in some areas.
Yes, especially when it comes to complex research.
But O3 Mini is much faster and more economical in comparison.
So there are like two different tools for different tasks.
Yeah, so O3 Mini is great for quick coding tasks.
And deep research is better for comprehensive analysis.
What's fascinating is the focus on longer autonomy.
Yeah, they are really pushing the idea of thinking long.
So, not to get all matrixy, but I've seen this mentioned a couple of times, that people in the field are starting to see a gradual emergence of patterns where certain types of use cases utilize certain types of models, and you're starting to have a bit of a diversity in the behavior and the architecture of these models, right? Stands to reason that that's going to get more sophisticated and more fine-tuned over time. Sorry about this. I'm out of water. I had a tiny little bottle, but I'm out. That helped. It stands to reason that this is going to get more sophisticated over time. So you could have AI models which develop to a point where they have specific purposes. Not unlike the AI programs that we saw in the Matrix. Remember the train station scene in, I think it was Matrix, I think it was Revolutions? Yeah, it was Revolutions. where the kid and the parents were sentient AI programs that had specific purposes. So it's fascinating where this goes in the future. But sorry, I digress. Let's keep listening to this.
Longer.
And it's about solving very difficult tasks, like a human.
Hopefully that gives you a better picture of it.
Yes, and how it's different from previous models.
And with that in mind, let's get back to our comparison of the models.
Yeah, as we were saying, it does outperform it in some areas.
Yes, especially in coding tasks, it seems to excel.
Our source said it was a real coding beast.
Exactly, and that's because it's optimized for STEM. Oh, go for it.
What can you tell me about the benchmark humanities last exam and how these models perform?
Okay, that's a great question. Let's unpack that benchmark.
Yes, it's a very interesting way to evaluate AI models.
So Humanities Last Exam is a really broad test.
It covers over 100 different subjects, from linguistics to rocket science.
And it has thousands of multiple choice and short answer questions.
Our sources said it was recently released by the Center for AI Safety.
And it's meant to test a model's capabilities across many expert fields.
What's fascinating is that it tests for both knowledge and reasoning.
Yeah, it's not just about having information.
It also tests how well the model can use that information.
And deep research actually set a new record on that benchmark.
That's right, scoring much higher than previous models.
Okay, that's a great question.
Yeah, it seems like you're asking about the benchmarks of these models.
So how well do they perform in humanities specifically?
Right, and our sources had some information about the benchmarks.
Yeah, let's
trying
unpack
to
this
find
for you.
that.
Okay, so the first thing to keep in mind is that a lot of these models are optimized for STEM.
Yeah, like math and coding.
But there are a few benchmarks that cover other areas.
Like the humanities, for example.
Yes, one source talked about how these models perform on general knowledge and reasoning.
Right, so it's not just about math and science then.
Exactly.
So I think it went back to regularly scheduled programming. It'll keep doing that after answering the specific question. So a little bit about humanities last exam. This benchmark that they talked about, which is across 100 different fields. I think a total of 3,000 multiple choice and short answer questions. And Gemini 2 Thinking, the model that I like to use personally right now, because I pay for Gemini Advanced subscription, got about 4.4% of the questions of these 3,000 questions. It got them right. That means, and it's probably the latest version of Google's LLM, LLMs that are out there. Probably its best reasoning model. DeepSeek, I believe, got about 9%, something in the range of that. So it did significantly better than Gemini Thinking. These numbers may be off. It's just what I remember. But the next two, I remember them specifically. O3 Mini, which came out just a couple of days before Deep Research, got 13.3% of the answers right. And it was the highest rated model in humanities last exam ever. Deep Research, which came out a couple of days later, got over 26% of them correct. It doubled that. And if you compare it to Gemini, which is like 4 to 5%, it's 5 times that. It's truly stunning to see how fast these things are developing. So I know we're at 24 minutes. I don't want to take this too far, but I don't want to ask NotebookLM about Operator simply because I haven't personally studied that much. Well, I didn't watch too many videos about Operator for some reason, so. I definitely want to try and learn a little bit about that.
And how well do they perform at complex?
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
What can you tell me about OpenAI's Operator and some of the use cases?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. Let's unpack OpenAI's Operator for you.
Yeah, it's a really interesting piece of tech, according to our sources.
So Operator is an AI agent that can control a web browser.
Exactly, just like a human would, using a mouse and keyboard.
And that lets it do all sorts of real-world tasks on your behalf.
One source described it as being like humanoid robots in the digital world.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It can interact with websites.
Right, it can fill out forms, make purchases, all kinds of things.
One of our sources said that it's not the first agent to do this.
But it's the first one that's gotten so much attention.
So what are some of the real-world use cases, according to our sources?
Well, one really cool use case is booking travel.
Yeah, it can navigate complex airline websites and figure out sold-out flights.
Another example is that it can pay your bills just from a picture.
That's really convenient. Just snap a picture of your bill and it goes to work.
And it can even negotiate prices on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, that's...
Wait, I want to let that finish, but... yeah, these are these are interesting use cases. Like I could use it to find rewards flights, which, yeah, I was thinking of paying a service for that. But yeah, let's see where this goes.
It's like you can go watch TV while it gets you a gym bench.
It really has a lot of potential to make our lives easier.
There were even examples of it debugging code in a local environment.
Yeah, one of our sources said it can do QA testing 24 hours a day.
It really sounds like it can automate a lot of things that we do online.
Exactly, and that's why it's getting so much buzzed in the AI community.
So it's a pretty big deal, and our sources showed it is very versatile.
Yes, and it will be exciting to see where it goes.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's return to our original discussion about...
That's fascinating. I mean, it's very interesting. I think deep research kind of blew me away more than I expected. But yeah, it's interesting, right? That you're gonna have tools that you give it a command and it'll go out and do the nitty gritty now. And we're already at that stage. So I think what I'll do is I will link the videos that I used as sources, at least the ones that that worked. I'll link them in the video, and I think we need to come back to this. There's one of the sources is an interesting conversation, like it's a Lex Friedman podcast episode, and it's interesting. It's all about the state of sort of the AI arms race, if you will, and it can be very fascinating to hear about that. And I think there's some more about deep research, which maybe I'll come back and add some sources as some more videos come out, and we'll be able to talk about it again, because it's when something sort of quadruples its competitors, benchmarks, you begin to question, is that, what sort of a leap forward is that? And deep research is that's why I sort of compared it to ChatGPT, right? It's got the potential to be the next step forward. So we'll have to see if that actually happens, or more importantly, what's the underlying tech, right? I heard that the O3 reasoning model is what's under deep research, so maybe the O3 reasoning model is the true step forward, and we might learn some more about that hopefully soon. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share this week. I had a plan to play us out with music, play a song, and maybe I'll do it in the next episode. Because the song that I want to play, actually, there's a bit of a story behind that, so it'll take more time than I think I'd like to force people to listen for. But anyways, for those who stuck through the technical difficulties and the rest of the episode, thanks for sticking around. And I'll see you next time. This is the AI Dinosaur signing off.